Hello, welcome to What the Flick. I am Christy, that is Alonzo, that is Ben. There's a new Alexander Payne movie out called Downsizing, and Alonzo will tell us a little bit about it.
So yeah, this is a little more sci-fi than usual for Payne. His stuff is very usually kind of low-key character studies, although this is a little bit of a low-key character study as well. Matt Damon plays a guy in Omaha who has life has not quite turned out the way he wanted. He didn't get to go to med school the way he had originally hoped to. But then he finds out about this amazing thing that they have discovered where they can shrink human beings down to tiny, tiny sizes. And they live in a tiny, tiny community where the money that you had when you were full size is suddenly worth a whole lot more because you're consuming a lot less. Sounds like it's going to be paradise, but doesn't quite work out that way. Take a look.
The cause of all the catastrophes we are seeing today is overpopulation. We are proud to unveil the only practical remedy to humanity's gravest problem.
Wow, that is wild, isn't it? It's just wild. It's Dave Johnson.
Hey, everybody.
And Carol. He never struck me as the kind of guy who'd go get small.
Downsizing takes the pressure right off.
Plus, you're really making a difference.
You mean all that crap about saving the planet?
Yeah.
Downsizing is about saving yourself. We live like kings.
Hey, how's everybody doing today?
This movie is all over the place. I don't know what he's trying to satirize here. I think there are many themes, many ideas going on here, and it meanders quite a bit. I mean, clearly the initial core of it is, analyzing the idea of what does success mean? What does happiness mean? And by getting small, you get to live large. And the irony of that, that you can afford diamonds because like they're tiny or whatever it is, and how that doesn't necessarily bring happiness. But then it goes into so many other different directions, and it is so overlong and so unfocused. And the Matt Damon character is just so bland. Like maybe he's supposed to be our conduit, and that's why he's sort of blandly.
Yeah, I think he's very much designed to be kind of an everyman.
But nothing to latch onto there with him, and then he falls in love with this woman who the Hong Chow character, who I think is just off tonally.
Oh, see, I think she's great.
Okay.
I love that performance.
All right.
And
talk me into this because I was like, ugh.
But
gross.
that's a key breaking point in the movie. Like if you think that she's hilarious and that works and that adds this life and vitality to the movie, then you are far more likely to be into this movie than if you thought I find this abrupt.
I think we're meant to think she's adorable,
right?
But making fun of she's a caricature.
Well, see, but here's the thing. I've heard the argument that she's supposed to be like the person of color who teaches the white guy, blah blah blah. But I think that she is so sort of brusque and not having it that she sort of undoes the notion of her being like the magical fill in the blank. She's this Vietnamese dissident who winds up here by force and.
She's lost a leg.
Yeah, and so I find her perspective on things is so like realistic and tough that it's not like she's this sort of smiling person who's there to sort of guide you to higher insight. She's there to yell at you because you're in her way.
Okay.
And so I like that.
But could she have done that though without the accent? I mean, who she is and what she sounds like.
Well, she is a Vietnamese dissident who wound up in the United States by force. I don't know how much time she would have had to develop some sort of Middle Eastern
I'm not saying
or Mid-Atlantic.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that what she is doing though is so like wildly over the top that it clangs and almost feels like they're making fun of her.
I think it's funny. You're both saying the same thing. Is that she's so wildly over the top that she gets past the part where she's the person of color who teaches the white person an important lesson. That it's so big and gigantic that it somehow worked. But I'm completely mixed about it because I both felt, well, she's really doing it, and God bless her. But
she's committing to the bit.
But I still couldn't fully embrace it. But I mostly think that the problem of the movie, if there is a problem, is what you touched on, is that somehow I did not care at all what happened to Matt Damon, and unbelievably, because I like him so much, and like Alexander Payne so much that I was like, this character, I don't want to see another. I don't care what he does today. I don't care what he does tomorrow.
He's so
I don't care what happens to him
But see, I saw him as just a conduit into this world, you know, and I thought that was interesting enough. I mean, yeah, you're right. This movie does have a lot of ideas, and maybe too many. But frankly, I love a movie with too many ideas more than one that with not enough, which is most of what we get these days.
But his satire is usually so much sharper than
no,
this.
absolutely.
It
is.
What's he trying to say?
It is. Well, I think there's a lot of things. I think there's a notion of, you know, we have done shitty things to the planet, and the things that we're doing that we're now going to behave better or fix things are just as bad. You know, like just because we're buying the same amount of crap, but now that it comes in like 100% recycled plastic thing, we feel better about it. But it's still, you know, we're still there's still a giant plastic island in the Pacific Ocean somewhere. So it seems to me like I felt a lot of the movie sort of mocking our little tiny stabs at trying to fix things when ultimately these problems are gigantic and we have to make gigantic sacrifices if we're going to fix them. I also kind of felt it reminded me of Seconds in terms, which is a much darker film, but it's that idea of, you know, as Buckaroo Banzai says, no matter where you go, there you are. Like you can completely radically change your life, but you're still going to be the same person after that procedure happens. And in this new place that you're living in this new context you're living, you're still bringing yourself. And so whatever your failings were as a full-size person are still going to be there when you're tiny.
See, I like the way you described that much better than the film actually conveyed that concept. I think you were looking for that and you wanted to find it, and that's an excellent point that I wish the movie had made better.
I just think, right, I definitely tried to. I just kept thinking, you know, there's a point in the movie where Kristen Wiig, who plays I guess they're married, plays his wife, and she kind of isn't in it as much. And from that point on, I kept thinking, this is not the same movie. That is not a criticism into of itself. Sometimes movies change direction and they change very effectively.
I've heard people get lost there.
I was like, what? So now what is happening? This, and then I'd be like, this is a message movie, right? And I don't mind being preached to if I like what I'm being preached at. But somehow there was just a disconnect that clearly you felt. I didn't feel as strongly, but where I was like, okay, this is a totally different movie now, and I am just simply not into it as much as when Jason Sudeikis and his wife were
Laura Dern.
Sudeikis' wife was somebody else. Yeah.
Laura Dern is married to
she's
Neil Patrick Harris.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I will say this:
when they were trying to convince them to get
do
small.
it, yeah. I saw this movie at a film festival in September, and I had the good fortune of not knowing a damn thing about it when I walked in. I heard the title Downsized. I thought, this is a movie about people getting fired because it's an Alexander Payne movie. So I figured it's about some guy who gets laid off, and that would be an Alexander Payne movie
In Omaha.
Yeah, exactly. So in the first 20 minutes, I'm like, oh my, what the really? You know,
I totally had the same.
But I kind of went with it, and yeah, I mean, the stuff that you say that I gleaned. I mean, I did get it from the movie. I didn't make it up and impose it on there. But there are a lot of places where, if Kristen Wiig doesn't lose you, then Hong Chow might lose you. But I was in for both of those.
Kristen Wiig's barely in it. I mean, like the Christoph Waltz character is one note. The Udo Kier character is barely a character. Having said that, my favorite sequence in the film.
We didn't mention Christoph Waltz until this point.
Christoph Waltz
may have more lines than Matt Damon.
He has a giant
and he's very funny, I think.
The scene where Matt Damon goes to the party at his apartment.
Yes.
And this place is like endless in terms of the amount of space. Like here's a room and here's a room and here's an indoor pool and now they're doing coke in this room. And
he lives upstairs from Matt Damon's shitty like one bedroom.
And so that to me felt like almost something out of a Charlie Kaufman movie. like the surreal element of that, like that his apartment is so big, and I wish that the movie itself kind of played more with ideas and instead it just sort of meanders, and then all of a sudden they're in the fjords.
I mean, what I liked about it was the notion of like the ideal tiny community is just such a like banal kind of suburban. We have 2 cheesecake factories or whatever, you know. But then the Hong Chow character takes us to like this other facet of that and shows us what is behind every kind of community like that, and who's doing the actual shitty labor of those communities.
Right. And that was a surprising idea too. I like that idea too. And again, it plays with the idea of space because that's a different kind of space than what everything else is.
Yeah.
And so again, like the visuals, I think this is much more ambitious visually than most Alexander Payne movies. There are actual visual effects here. You know, usually his films are much more realistic. So I like the ambition of it. I just feel like it's trying to get its arms around too much.
I really feel like in 2017, that in early 2019, I might watch Downsizing and love it.
Okay.
I really,
Come back and report to us.
But also, there's no question that he is a victim of, because I just think he's one of the best filmmakers there is in the world, and he's a victim of the success of those other movies too. Is that it's hard when you have somebody sort of who makes movies that stay with you as long as almost every one of his movies has stayed with me. That you just go in and there's an expectation, even although I didn't know anything about the movie, what I knew was I'm seeing an Alexander Payne movie. Like this is fantastic.
I love Election. I love Sideways. I love
Descendants.
Too.
I love Nebraska. I couldn't
me too.
love
It's beautiful.
so,
but this feels like a major departure and decline from all of that.
It's a gamble, and it may or may not pay off for you.
All right, so what are your numbers then?
I'd say 8.5. It was on not my top 10, but I think it was on my top 20.
And Todd McCarthy,
Wow.
I'm super glad that there are very smart people who love it, and it makes me think that it's probably worth seeing again.
So I'm a smart person who doesn't love it. Okay, so Ben, what's your number?
6.2.
Okay, I'm saying 4. This does not work for me at all. I know I'm super wrong, right? 6.3 is our number. It's 62% on the tomato meter, so it's very divisive. Go check it out and let us know what you think. Bye.